thought we'd start off with some sustainable transport. This is a tramway, one of our tramways, full of traffic. So I was asked to talk about Melbourne transport performance, progress and prospects. For the next session I've tried to get some facts together about where we stand. I say Melbourne transport, I'm going to really kind of emphasise public transport, which is my aim. Performance. I'd like to start with buses. This is Melbourne. 2/3 of residents in Melbourne don't live next to a train, don't live next to a tram, even though we've got very big railways and tramways. They live next to buses, which is a problem because we don't have many. We have an average bus frequency of Melbourne about a bus every 40 minutes in the peak. It's every 50 minutes off peak. Buses used to finish at 6:53 at night on average in Melbourne. I actually went through all the timetables. It's really exciting life as a professor. This is the bus network on weekdays, and this is the bus network on a Sunday. So 2/3 of Melbourne residents, this is their public transport. This is a more recent plot of the service level of Melbourne buses, Melbourne compared to the rest of the world. Major cities, here we are down here. We're very similar to Tokyo. You might think, hey, that's pretty good. Tokyo's pretty good. Well, 2/3 of Tokyo's residents are relying on buses. You know, they've got subways and metros. There we are. Trams. We just heard, we had a great big inquiry on congestion. Our Melbourne trams are stuck in traffic. Their speeds are declining over time because of increasing traffic congestion. Why is this such a big issue for Melbourne? I asked myself as a researcher, because we have the world's biggest streetcar system. I like the word, the American word. It means we actually put these $6 million vehicles into the middle of a traffic queue. And not only do we do it better than anybody else in the world. 167 kilometres. The nearest is Toronto with 60, 70. What's interesting is we had 2 French operators of trams. Here's France. Yep, that's the biggest traffic operations in France. It's less than Collins Street. This is the result. We take $6 million vehicles and put them in the middle of chaos. There's our speeds compared to the rest of the world. We're in the bottom 20%. And we're getting slower. Our reliability, 33% of all our trams are not on time, and the measure of not on time is arriving better than 1 minute early and later than 6 minutes late. So a pretty wide measure, yet a 1/3 of them are beyond that. Trains, our average train speed in Melbourne is 33 kilometres an hour, again one of the slowest networks. We're extremely unreliable, our trains. We break down the service. Last time I was able to measure it was every 15,000 kilometres. Sydney trains break down the service every 50, and it was thought that best practice would be 100,000 kilometres. You can't measure it in Singapore and Hong Kong because they've never broken down the service. Our network's very complicated. It's getting more complicated. We're putting it under more pressure as the city grows. The result of all this is we have a huge amount of disruption to our services. This is a great article in The Age. 1,900 signal failures, stopping the services on those lines. That's 5 a day. And I can tell you from my data, that's at least only a quarter of the real problem. It's actually much worse than that. We had a huge ridership growth in railways, very successful. So what are we doing about it? What's our progress? This is government statistics. This is the amount of service supplied on trams, trains, buses since 2001. And it's the change in them. We've had a 62% increase in bus services in Melbourne since 2001. 46% overall. We've almost, by 50% almost doubled the size of our transit system. Rails increased 30%, tram 9%. But have you noticed something about this data? We've got this nice increase in services. But did you notice something has happened around about here? Yeah, around about 2010, we went from go to stop. Does anybody have any idea what happened in 2010? All right, well, you might think that that's bad, but I'm sorry, it's actually much worse than this. You see, population's been growing, so increasing service was appropriate. So how are we keeping pace with this growth, we might ask ourselves. So this is per head of population service in Melbourne. We see since 2001, we've actually increased net service beyond population growth, up to around about 2010, funnily enough. And since then, because we haven't increased services at all, we've gone backwards. Yes, up to 2010, we were go, go, go. We then stopped, but we've actually gone backwards. What are our prospects for the future, you might ask, given this terrible situation? We have a plan for a road. We have a first stage, $8 billion, and a second stage committed in the next Parliament. The road itself is not a very successful road. It has very poor evaluations. This is some data which I put together. It's dealing with a very small part of the transport problem of Melbourne, congestion associated with the northern suburbs and the Eastern Freeway in particular, which is very congested. This is travel from the Eastern Freeway during the day, and it shows that only 8% of travel, this big problem at the Eastern Freeway, actually goes east-west. This is why the project doesn't perform very well. Most of that travel goes to the city, where the problem is. We have a railway project being discussed, the Melbourne Metro. It's about the same price, actually, with the first stage. It is immensely more successful in its design. It's the equivalent of almost 5 east-west roads. I don't mean the first stage, I mean both stages, in the volume it can carry. It carries 19 freeways worth of travel, not east-west, but to the city where the big problem is. The problem is, we're talking about it, and nobody, no government, not this government, not the next government, has actually committed to it. There is a statement by the Labour Party saying that they'll try and support it, but they probably need federal input. You see, in the future, I've explained in the past, we have this huge problem which is emerging since 2010. In the future, we're going to grow by about 1.3 million people in the next 20 years, and actually to 2.3 beyond that. That's about the size of Adelaide. Yes, we're going to take Adelaide, we're going to put it into Melbourne. So let's be logical about this. We're going to have Adelaide, let's have Adelaide's public transport system as well. Let's put 6 heavy railway lines in, because we're growing that much, 2 light railway routes, 130 new bus routes, 130. Okay? A guided busway, an enormous guided busway. Let's put that into Melbourne in the next 20 years, because we're going to get Adelaide here. The commitment currently is nothing at all of that nature. We have 1 heavy railway line being built now, which was committed by the last government and the last federal government. I think we might have 2 new bus routes that are being discussed. Actually, I'm not even sure we got that. So we're down by 6 heavy railway lines, 2 light railway routes, 130 bus routes, and 1 guided busway in the future. In the end, this is appalling. It's appalling. Okay? It's not planning, we're going backwards. There's no plan to do anything about this, guys. I'm bitterly disappointed it's so political. And I try to be balanced here. I'm trying to be balanced on both sides and deal with the facts. But we're just not going anywhere. And I like to compare this with the Liberal government in New South Wales, who's building the North West Railway link, that's building a brand new light railway in the centre of the city, expanding the existing one, doing a lot on the rest of the railways. They're even putting in a toll road, WestConnex, which includes public transport as part of the project, you know. It just seems like we're not doing very well in this.